We'll be sharing some of the teachings of Krishna from Bhagavad-Gita. And just like last time, we took a shloka from the 18th chapter where Krishna was saying that mentally devote your every action to me, see me as your supreme goal, uplift toward me every discernment of your intellect, thus with love absorb all your heart's feelings in me. With heart absorbed in me, you shall by my grace overcome every impediment. So this was the last shloka that we took, and today we are going to take the next one, which is hereafter. He says that if, however, with any lingering thought of ego, you do not fully heed me by absorbing my consciousness into yours, you may then be thrown down again to your destruction. And this is very interesting that Krishna, on one side, is talking of consolation. He's saying that make me your supreme goal and absorb me into your consciousness, and you will be able to sail through gracefully. And on the other hand, he says that, okay, yes, if you will not put your whole mind to me, if you will not absorb your consciousness into me, and if you will live in your separate identity, because here ego has to be understood as living separate in a separate identity, then you will be pushed or you will be thrown towards your destruction. And those words look like as if, Krishna is very kind of very harsh and he's punishing people, or but is it really like that? We have to just see what these words are meaning truly. Because if you see one of the simplest ways by which Krishna has repeatedly said that your all causes of all your suffering, whether they are of physical nature, whether they are of mental, emotional, financial or spiritual, there is only one cause. And what is that? That you are not living in God's consciousness. And God could not have been more simpler than this, that you are not living in God's consciousness. That is why you are suffering on all these planes. That is why Bhagavad-Gita is one of the most loved scriptures worldwide, because it talks in simple language and it gives us a step-by-step guide to retrace our footsteps back. So here, we have to understand that if we have to stay in that consciousness, we have to live in God's consciousness all the time. And nothing less than that is going to satisfy us. Nothing less than that is going to fulfill our hearts, because we have all come from Him and we have to go back to Him. So unless we are living all the time in His consciousness, we won't be free from sufferings. So this is very interesting that Krishna is talking in this way. And if we see in our sometimes we may feel that and this does come in a devotee's path. Sometimes when he starts going towards God, he starts tracing his footsteps towards Him, and suddenly he finds that the same pleasures which he used to feel in world is not giving him that pleasure. In fact, his predicament is that he's somewhere in the middle, where he has not attained the absolute bliss. And here he's renouncing the world, or he's going away from the world, and so he's in a no man's land, where the same pleasures which he used to enjoy in the world is not able to enjoy them anymore, and he has yet to cover a distance where he has to merge himself into that absolute bliss. And then it's a kind of situation where he's in the middle, and he may at times feel that where am I really not in a worse position, that I am not of the world and I am not even of the God. But then here Krishna is saying, and this is exactly what is the meaning of destruction, because sometimes we may feel that God is not allowing me those worldly pleasures now, but then it is a Divine Mother's love which is happening in a way that she's closing the doors towards the world, so that we don't even look that side, and there is only front door open for us, that yes, that is the direction in which we have to keep moving on. Because if she keeps the back door open, there is always a temptation to fall back and just move back, and that is why, it is nothing but God's compassion that she closes the door, and she always encourages, as Krishna is saying, if you will fall, if you will not follow me, if you will not see me, if you will not absorb me into yourself, then you will be pushed to your destruction. That is to say that at that point we will feel much more pain as a devotee rather than a person who is living all the time in the world, because this pain or suffering should be understood as an incentive which God is giving us to keep moving, to help us move forward. And this is, very interesting that God is talking in this way. But then the question arises that how can we absorb His consciousness into us? If that is the key, if that is the goal, that is the panacea for all of us, which will take us away from all the sufferings, how can we do that? And one of the key things, as they say, the seat of God's consciousness in our body is the point between the eyebrows, is the, it's a point, as Swami said, in the frontal lobes, just behind this part. And when we can also say that this is the seat of divine consciousness or the seat of spirit. And Master at one point, he was very specific that live at this point all the time and just come down a little to eat or talk and then go back. Which is to say that sometimes masters, they talk very simple and they want to tell us that this is where you belong. If you will fall, you will suffer. So live at that point. And if we see all our spiritual path, all our yoga techniques are nothing but to help us to come to this point when we can always stay at this point comfortably. As you know, we remember that story of Draupadi where Krishna was asking her, Draupadi, why don't you practice some of the yoga techniques? And Draupadi said, sir, I would love to practice them, but I just cannot take my mind off your face. So you see, we all have to attain that point where, yoga techniques just fall off. As sometimes Yogananda said that this is nothing but a flower. And when the fruit is there, flower goes away naturally. So we have to come to that point where we are living, we can always feel that our eyes are always on His face, irrespective where we are. So you see, concentration is the key. And concentration, if you see, concentration is something which is a very beautiful attribute of human brain. If you see it from neuroscience perspective, just about 20 years back, scientists were just grappling with this concept that how brain cells, how the neurons, how the networks, they help us to develop and acquire new skills. Only recently, scientists have found that if, let us say, you decide tomorrow that I'm going to learn piano, and you keep practicing, your brain cells will start reorganizing themselves in a way so that the task becomes easier for you. Same way, if you want to understand, if let us say acquire a new skill, let us say you start painting, the brain cells will start organizing themselves so that the painting becomes much easier for you. So this is a very beautiful attribute which has been given to humankind, and vice versa is equally true. If you think that you are the miserable person, you are living in misery, your brain cells will organize so that it becomes, you feel that you are the most miserable person on the planet. Because this is how the human beings have been arranged. Human beings have been designed. As sometimes, somebody said that yoga is nothing but human technology. Where, we have a fault in the car, we take it to the mechanic, and mechanic or an engineer knows where the fault is. So yoga science is nothing but human technology. And more people, scientists are realizing now that it's an interesting time where we are living, that Vedic truths are not different from the scientific truths. And when we apply our mind, if you see, the seat of divine spirit is this, and the seat of concentration, Master said, is also this. And the seat of intellect is also this, seat of willpower is also this point. And so when we are concentrating on any task, we are actually operating from here. And that is why this point is a kind of master switch, you may say. And this helps to organize everything in your brain, in your body, so that it helps you go in that direction successfully. So now what do we do when we concentrate? Today also we thought that, okay, when we were chanting, we will chant with concentration so that my every word that I am speaking is going directly to the person for whom it is directed. And in that way, so when we are concentrating at this point, which is the seat of concentration itself, it is like concentrating on the source itself. So you are no longer divided. You are concentrating right at the source. It is just like, the source, the light is brightest at its source. The closer you go, the brighter it is. So when we say that this is the seat of concentration, this is the seat of divine spirit, and if we concentrate in yoga on this point, then we start coming closer to that point. And concentration also tells us, has a very beautiful another attribute, that if you concentrate on the object, you start imbibing its qualities. And you start imbibing the qualities to an extent that you become one with that object, and there comes a point when there is no difference between the object and the observer. So if you see, after dharana comes dhyana. So dhyana is nothing but a natural sequel of dharana. And this is exactly what is meditation. If you see, Yogananda said, concentration on God one-pointedly is meditation. And becoming one with Him is nothing but samadhi, which is what Krishna is saying here, that if you will live in my consciousness all the time, then only you can escape sufferings from this world. And there is a beautiful way Krishna is suggesting. If we go to 9th chapter, because Krishna knows that it is a difficult job. Not many people can keep their concentration with such zeal and such vigor. So, but he says, first of all, he says that in the 9th chapter, 33rd shloka, he says that, you have come into this transient world full of misery. Worship me alone. So first of all, he himself is very direct that you are in a place which is transient and is full of misery. I mean, God cannot be more direct than this. And he's also giving one clue that if you need to escape, you need to worship me alone. And then he says that how we can take our steps one at a time. Because you see, in 26th shloka he says, whenever anyone with a pure intention offers me even a leaf, a flower, a piece of fruit, or water, I accept his offering as symbolic of his love. So you see, that concentration which we are talking will not come to us in one go. So we have to take steps in that direction. At one point, Swamiji said that don't see God as an absolute reality which is far off, which he is to some extent, but then also see God as a direction in which we are heading. So the first step, if you see, when a devotee comes, he offers, let us say, a flower on the altar, or a fruit, or even a piece of fruit, he's saying, if you offer, or if you do tithing, you share part of your wealth. So what is that? When we do that, we are offering a part of our possessions or part of ourselves at the feet of Lord. And to that extent, God comes and blesses us into our lives. He comes to us in our lives. You make a contact through that offering, and that to that degree, our contact is established or re-established in a way. And if you see, there is a story. In fact, there was a poem Rabindranath Tagore has written. It's a very beautiful story, that how, maybe you all know it, but it is worth mentioning, that there was a beggar who was standing on a wayside, and he was, looking for somebody to come on the way and to give him the alms. And so he was waiting, and suddenly he saw that on a distance, he saw that the chariot was coming towards him. And when this chariot was coming, he recognized that it was no one else but a king who was coming on that way. And suddenly beggar realized that today is the day, when he can be, he can become, he can get anything he may ask for, because no other than king himself is coming on the way. And so he was very happy, and as he was looking to him, and the chariot came closer, and the king came close to him, and he came off the chariot and came close to him, and this beggar was, very excited that today king has once, he's just facing the king here face to face. But then he was surprised when king came to him, and he spread his hand in front of him and told him, "What can you offer me?" And then the beggar was astonished. He thought that he was the beggar, and here he was the king who was asking for something. And beggar thought that, what can I do? What can I give you? And but then he said that I have to give him something. And so very reluctantly he just looked for whatever possession he had. He had a small bag full of some rice was there, and he gave him a grain of rice on his palm. And the king took that grain of rice, went back to his chariot, and went back the way, and he just followed on. And the beggar, who was very surprised and also disappointed that what he was expecting he couldn't get, came back home, and he was saying that, okay, my day is done and now I have to just take my dinner, whatever. And he opened the bag so as to cook the rice that he had. And when he opened the bag, he found that out of that small heap of rice, one grain of rice was of gold. And he, with that, as he just understood what happened on that day, that when whatever he offered to the king gave him manyfold. Whatever his offering was, he returned to him. And then he wept, and he thought that if he could have given him all the rice that he had, his destiny would have been different. So you see, this story why I'm sharing here is that we, all of us as devotees, when we come to Krishna or we come to God, we are always very shaky. We always want to test the ground, which is okay, because this is how human nature is. Because we say that, okay, let me offer something, and then we look for what we are getting. And you will be surprised that because God is, as they say, whatever you give him, he returns the same thing back to you many folds, and also purifies. So let us say, if we give him our possessions, he purifies them. But then a point comes when devotee realizes that when I am sharing whatever I have, I am just giving a part of my possessions, and I am still not, although I am feeling better, but I am still not feeling fulfilled. So then he says, you need to take the next step. And the next step, Krishna says, is that whatever action you perform, whether eating or performing spiritual rites or making gifts in charity or in austerities, dedicate that action in offering to me. So this is the next step that devotees has to take. And what happens here, that whatever he does in his day, let us say we pray for the food. Now two things are happening when we are praying. One is that we are inviting the divine consciousness in the food itself, which will purify all of us. At the same time, it is just a medium through which we are offering our heart's love to him, and to that extent we are offering a part of ourselves to him, and to that extent we also get purified in that process. So you see, this is the next step Krishna is talking here. And then even after doing this, devotee realizes that yes, I am offering my actions, but still I am at a distance. I am still suffering. I am still not feeling God's love as I should feel, although I am relatively better. Then he says that, then he feels, and then he says, starts offering him his breath, his energy, his heart's love, his feelings, and his thoughts to him. That is to say that, to that extent, When we offer our heart's feelings to Him, our hearts get expanded in that process. Our feelings get purified. Our desires get purified. Our thoughts get purified. But there comes a point when He still doesn't feel God's presence all the time, because He still feels that He's separate from that divine reality. Although He's here and His feelings are getting purified, His thoughts are getting purified, but He's still at a distance. He's still suffering. And then Krishna says that that is the time He has to take the final plunge, which is to offer Himself into that divine love, that I don't want to live as a separate identity. This is what Krishna is saying here, that if you will fall back into your ego as separate identity, you will be thrown to your destruction. And this is what we are chanting when we say that I offer this bubble of ego into your ocean of bliss. And in that process, the bubble falls into the ocean and becomes the ocean itself. And that is the point at which he is saved, and he realizes that there is no suffering in this world. The suffering was nothing but a delusion, and he was always one with Him, and he is now again one with Him. And this is how Krishna is saying here when he concludes the last shloka. He says that, keep your mind fixed on me, be my devotee. In ceaseless worship, bow to me in adoration, thus becoming one with me and knowing me as your highest goal, you shall ever be my very own. Just to say that Krishna here is saying that once we come to this point, then there is, the devotee realizes that he is you. There is no other reality apart from him. But I want to, share one more thing here, and which is to say that concentration, which it took me some time to understand this fact, that concentration is very important in meditation. Sometimes, we are meditating half-heartedly, and that is the reason why we are not getting results. I was thinking at one point of time, I was driving on the expressway, Mumbai expressway, and it is one of the best highways, as you know, in India. And in past, I have driven my car only up to 100 kilometers per hour, not beyond that. And as my friend was sitting with me and I was talking to him, and he said, no, you can go even beyond that. So this is the time, maybe you can fulfill your desire of traveling at a higher speed. And I don't recommend what I'm sharing here with you, but this is what happened. And so I said, okay, let me drive at 120. And so the maximum I went was up to 130 kilometer per hour, and it was for a few kilometers of stretch, which was very straight. But I realized that if you are driving your car at such a high speed, not for a fraction of a moment you can take your eyes off the road. You just have to be on the road, because a slight move can make a lot of difference, when you are walking, when you are going at such a high speed. And that is exactly, just think about a fighter pilot, if he is flying a fighter jet and he knows that he has to land his plane on that very narrow strip, even for a small brief moment, if he loses his concentration, he may lose his life. And this is exactly, what we have to do when we are meditating. We have to be at the task, on dot, there. At one point, Yogananda said that if you are not concentrating in meditation, it's an insult to God. That is to say that, imagine you are talking to a friend and you're looking here and there. I mean, what kind of impression we are making on the friend? And this is exactly, sometimes what happens is that we sit, and Master said that when you sit to meditate, just make a resolve that I'm going to sit here for next 15-20 minutes without moving a muscle. Sometimes we say that how we can evaluate our meditations. People are, talking about visions and so many other experiences. They may or may not be a benchmark of deepening meditation. But one benchmark can always be there, that whether your meditations are deepening or not, is that how much stillness you feel in yourself, physically and mentally, when you are meditating. And when we are meditating with that physical stillness, which comes first, because mental stillness will not come unless physical stillness is there, then you can be rest assured that you are progressing in your meditation. Because today you are able to sit still for, let us say, 15 minutes, tomorrow maybe half an hour, and day after maybe 1 hour. And this is how we can assess ourselves, are we really progressing in the right direction or not. So my such small suggestion would be that if we are meditating and if we are really serious on the path, just think of a cricketer, if he's facing a ball and if he's not fully concentrated, do you think he'll be able to play? Even in worldly success, think about a housewife or a homemaker who is making food in the kitchen. If for a moment she just goes off, do you think she just puts spices or salt, whatever comes to her mind, without paying attention? Do you think the meal will be tasty enough? Even in worldly success, concentration is paramount. To the degree we concentrate, we achieve success. And that is why, last time we were talking about that death itself is going to be the final exam. So the whole life, if you see, is nothing but the prelims that we give. The preliminary exams are nothing but to see. Even a small little task if you're doing, do it with concentration. Because then concentration will become a habit for you. And when it becomes habit, the moment you sit in meditation, Master said, don't see here and there, I have still 20 minutes to go. Right then and there, you should put all your mind and be at it. So you see, concentration is one tool which I feel which can take us to that point of God consciousness. And the moment, if we, and I can, I can assure you that if our concentration is right up there, slowly you will see that in no time, I think we can see that there is no difference. You're already there. And as Krishna is saying, that is the point we all have to reach, when our mind, like Draupadi, is always on him, and then there is no suffering. And then definitely we can feel that thing, that God alone is playing all these roles and he has become us. Joy to you.